Alright, so we're going to look at these techniques that we've covered in the course of this year. I've brought them all together, and as I was telling some of you earlier on, we are going to be putting these techniques into practice, meaning I'm going to actually build a story using these techniques to make them more clear to you as to how to apply and how to use these techniques effectively. So without further ado, let's begin by looking at these 9 techniques, alright? So the 9 techniques are broken into 3 blocks, okay? And these 3 blocks, if you realize, I have broken into very familiar headings, the head, the body, and the legs or the tail or the conclusion of the story, alright? So the first set of 3 techniques deals with building suspense. And I'm sure you all know what the word suspense means. It actually means to build anticipation, a sense of wanting to find out or know more about your story. And as you know, if you can build suspense, you draw the reader into your story and you involve the reader in finding out what's going to happen next. And that makes for a very good story, alright? So that's going to be the first block. We're looking at how we build suspense, and under that block, we have 3 strategies: foreshadowing, starting in the middle, and flashback. I'm sure you're familiar with all 3, but I'll review them and I'll show you how they get applied in writing mainly the introduction of your story, alright? Then we have involvement next. And involvement is about how we use our 5 senses to build an immersive environment. An immersive means the reader feels like he's right in the story. He's involved in it. He's like submerged in the world that you've created, alright? So we use our 5 senses. We use dialogue and thought tags, right? And incidentally, dialogue and thought tags were also covered in the previous session under language, right? And finally, we build vivid, realistic action sequences that make the reader excited as he or she is reading the story. And I'm sure you've seen action films where, you know, there are certain scenes that are so riveting, so exciting that you can't tear your eyes away. You have to watch it from beginning to end. And that's what makes a movie or a story really involving and engaging. And that's what we want to do with our story. So that's under involvement. And finally, closure, where we end the story in a way that provides solutions for problems, punishments or consequences for bad behavior, and morals and lessons that we learn by going through these experiences of this story. Okay? So that's the summary of the 9 techniques that we will be covering today. Alright? Okay, hi Jaden, welcome. Good to see you. Alright, hello. I can see Jensis is online as well. Hello. Okay, so for those of you who just joined us, we are looking at the 9 techniques of building effective content in our stories. This video is a companion video to the previous video where we were talking about the 9 techniques for building good language in our compositions. Okay? So if everybody's on the same page, I've just summarized these 9 techniques for building good content. Alright, hi Joseph. And these 9 techniques can be broken up into 3 different sections that correspond to the 3 parts of our story: the beginning, the body, and the conclusion, or the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. Right? In the introduction, we'll use suspense. In the body, we'll use involvement, and in the closure or in the conclusion, we'll use the closure strategies. Okay? Right. So boys and girls, remember what I said. Let's not get into introducing each other and, you know, saying hi to each other. Let's focus on the lesson. Okay? The chat window is primarily for you to ask questions about the video. So please don't use it as a chat group to talk to each other, because that's not being respectful and attentive to the lesson. Okay? So remember, please focus on the lesson. If you've just joined in, please try not to disturb the rest. Quickly and quietly follow on with the lesson. And as I'm talking, if you have any questions, use the chat window to type them in so that at the end of the session, when I read your questions, I can start to answer them. Okay? So I don't want to have to scroll through like 5 pages of hi, hello, hi, I'm so and so. That will be really tedious for me. So please try to keep your engagement in the chat window purely to questions or comments about what I'm teaching. If you have an insight, a suggestion, an idea, that ties in with what I'm saying, you're welcome to type it here. Otherwise, it will distract the others from paying attention to what's happening in this video, okay? So remember, this hour is precious. We want to keep the focus on composition. After this, if you want to socialize, you want to chat with each other, with your parents' consent, you can do so, okay? But remember, this place, this time is for us to learn about composition. It's for us to clear any questions we might have, review what we've learned in the year, okay? So let's try not to distract each other through the chat window, right? If you have any questions, I will gladly answer you at any point in this presentation, okay? So enough said about the chat window. Let's now look at the 9 techniques in detail. I'm going to explain how they're used in building a story, okay? And I'm sure you'll notice the boy, right? His body is right here, and you can see he has a head, a body, and legs, right? This corresponds to the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. As I'm sure you can see, the body should be the part where we focus on the most, all right? So I'm going to use a topic that we are very familiar with, that we've done before, to illustrate and explain to you how to apply these 9 techniques in one story, okay? So I'm about to do this now, so pay close attention and remember to ask any questions about anything as you hear me speak that you're not sure of, okay? So let's go. Now I'm going to show you the question, the composition question that you are going to, or I am going to, write about, okay? Are you ready? Let's go. All right, so this is the topic for today. Now, always remember, when you're looking at the question in the exams, you should always focus on the theme. And the theme is always words that have been bolded, right? They're a darker shade of black, and you can see that they are slightly bigger than the surrounding text. Now, this is the theme of your story, and this must appear in your story or you are out of point, and you will fail your content if you write a story that is unrelated to this theme. So I always teach my students, if you want to be really safe, you want to be sure that you haven't written out of point, try to include these words or some form of these words in your story, so you know you're on track. So the teacher who's grading your paper also knows that you are on track. So today's theme is a bullying incident, and we have done a bullying incident. I believe it was in composition 6 or 7, right? We talked about this, a bullying incident, and that's the theme, right? So we have to talk about a bullying incident. And then over here we have these 3 pictures, right? The first picture is of a boy apparently, hitting or slapping another boy. Probably the boy that's being slapped is the one that's the victim, and the boy doing the slapping is the bully. Alright, so this picture should be very easy for us to use in our composition. So I would recommend, out of the 3 pictures, that we look at the first picture as the picture to include. Now always remember, you don't have to use all 3 pictures, but you do need to use at least one. And you need to tie this picture to the theme. And it's very easy to see how picture 1 links to a bullying incident. It's very easy to link it, right? Picture 2 and 3 are a little more challenging. So today I'm going to base my composition on picture 1 and the theme, a bullying incident. Alright? Alright. Okay, I'm sorry. Am I blocking the first picture? Okay. Let me see. Perhaps I can move this around. Okay, so you guys can see it. Alright. Is this better? Okay, let's see. I'm moving it a little more to the side. Yep, okay, so you can see it's actually the picture of 2 boys. One of the boys is kind of like being very aggressive and slapping the other boy around. He's probably the bully. And the other boy is cowering, his hands are up in a defensive posture. It looks like he's the victim, he's the one being bullied. Okay, great. So now that you've seen the picture, and now that you've seen the topic, I'm going to start on showing you how to apply the first group of 3 strategies. Remember, the 3 were under the heading building suspense, or suspense, right? S, suspense, okay? So suspense usually gets built in the introduction. And if you remember the 3 strategies, right? You'll know that they all have to do with building reader anticipation and suspense, okay? Right. Okay. Right, so suspense, right? Building anticipation in the reader with an oh, all right. So usually, when you watch something really surprising or shocking, you'll tend to react with, oh, wow, what just happened? Okay, so building anticipation in the reader is what happens in the introduction, okay? Right, Aiden, please, if you need to go, just go, but try not to distract the rest, all right? Thank you. Okay, so we're building suspense by using these three strategies that I just talked about, okay? Let's go into these three strategies right now, and I'll show you how I apply them in three different versions of the introduction, okay? Three different versions of the introduction. Let's get started, okay? So remember, the first strategy is foreshadowing, right? And I mentioned this before. It was quite early in the year. We talked about foreshadowing as a strategy to predict the future from within the text. So I'm kind of, as the narrator, telling you that something's going to happen in the future even before it happens in my story, okay? When you do this, it creates an atmosphere of anticipation or dread, depending on whether the thing that's going to happen is a good or bad thing. Now, remember, today's theme is bullying, right? So do you think the thing that's going to happen is good or bad? Right? It's probably going to be something, right? You can go ahead and type if you know the answer to that, right? If I'm going to foreshadow something that's going to happen in a bullying situation, do you think that thing will be good or bad? Bad, right? Exactly, Jensis. Thank you for that. So it's something bad, all right? Which means that it will create an atmosphere. Thank you, Ashton. Bad, right? So it's going to create an atmosphere of dread. Now, the word dread over here in the PowerPoint slide simply means something bad or terrible is about to happen. Thank you very much, Megan. So something terrible is about to happen. Okay, so in this case, my foreshadowing is going to build anticipation about something bad happening, right? Dread, okay? So when we use foreshadowing, we generally use words like little did I know that I would, or I could not have imagined that this would have happened, okay? So that's how okay, sorry, Martin, right? So that's how I would use foreshadowing. Now, take a look together with me at this example, all right? So I begin with dialogue, right? Which is the easiest way to begin a story, right? Drawing your reader directly in to your character saying something. So don't forget your wallet. Mother hollered from the kitchen as I was dashing out of the door. Grinning sheepishly, right? So here I'm starting with a participle, grinning. Grinning sheepishly, I rushed back to my room to retrieve my wallet. Got it! I yelled as I sprinted for the door. Notice that I'm using pretty high-level verbs like sprinted and grinned and dashed and hollered. These are words that are a step above my normal run and shout and say and run and jog, right? So they are different higher level words, right? Got it, I yelled as I sprinted out the door. And here is the foreshadowing, right? Little did I know as I left my home that I would regret bringing my wallet to school that day. Can you see what I just did? As the narrator, I'm telling you that the future me in the story is going to regret not forgetting about my wallet, right? So the act of bringing my wallet along is foreshadowing something bad that's about to happen with my wallet, all right? So can you all see? Okay, so the idea about foreshadowing is telling the reader in advance that something bad is about to happen. And how do I signal or tell the reader in advance? I use the words little did I know, all right? Little did I know at that time in the story, little did I know that I would regret bringing my wallet. Good question, Jensis. No, like I said earlier, foreshadowing can be good or bad, depending on the story. In this case, because the story is about a negative experience, bullying, then the foreshadowing would be about something bad happening, right? But if it's about a surprise party, or if it's about a birthday gift, right, then the foreshadowing could be about something very positive. So for example, I might say that, as I left my home, I had a frown on my face, but little did I know that the day would end with me leaping for joy. All right, so leaving the house, I was feeling very sad, but I foreshadow that and I say, hi Ingrid, I foreshadow that and I say, oh, little did I know that starting the day sad would end the day, I would end the day actually being very happy because I would receive a surprise gift later on. And I build anticipation in the reader. The reader will be wondering, hey, why would this person be frowning now and then suddenly be smiling later? What's going to happen? And that foreshadowing builds suspense and anticipation in the reader. Your reader wants to know what's going to cause this person's mood to change. Or in this case, your reader wants to know about why this wallet, right? Why this wallet that you bring along with you after mother reminds you is going to cause something bad to happen, because little did I know as I left my home that I would regret bringing my wallet to school that day. Oh dear. So your wallet, and bringing your wallet is normally a good thing, right? Forgetting your wallet is normally a bad thing. But in this case, I'm using the fact that I remembered my wallet to foreshadow something bad happening with that wallet. All right, can you all see? It's actually a pretty good twist to the story as well. Normally, if I forget to bring my wallet, it's a bad thing. But you know, if I had forgotten to bring my wallet that day, maybe I wouldn't have gotten bullied. It's the point I'm trying to make here. Okay, so this is the first technique, foreshadowing. Okay, so I'm using the wallet as the trigger, as the foreshadowing, as the object that is going to point to something bad happening. So it is the wallet. Okay. In this case, it's the wallet. I've chosen the wallet as the object that will foreshadow the bullying incident later. And as I go into the other strategies, you'll see that I use the wallet in different ways when I use different strategies. Okay, so this is the first strategy, foreshadowing, and it builds suspense in the reader, because the reader is now going to wonder, oh dear, how does the wallet make you regret at the end of the day? And your reader will want to read on to find out more. So that's one of the very powerful techniques for creating suspense. Okay, great. Thank you guys for bringing Ingrid and everybody else up to speed. All right. Yes, that's right, Kaylin. It is about the wallet because the bully is going to take the wallet, right? Yes, wonderful. So you can already kind of predict how the story is going to go. But again, creating suspense is about showing and not telling as well, right? Okay. Yes. Yeah, exactly. So there's all of this possibility of what's going to happen. Very good, Kaylin. Good guesses all around. We'll see as the story develops how and why the wallet is so significant. Why is this wallet so important, right? I'm sure you're also wondering what is so special about this wallet besides the fact that I forget to bring it, right? And there is something special about this wallet. You're going to find out later, okay? So the wallet, right, becomes the center of this story about bullying. And remember, the story is still about bullying, right? It's not about losing a wallet, it's about bullying, right? So that's going to be the climax and the main point of my story, the bullying incident, right? Remember, the key theme was bullying incident, right? If I can show it to you again, right? Remember, it was the bullying incident, right? It's a bullying incident, and the picture is about a boy being bullied by another boy. Okay, now I am going to the next strategy. Aiden, there's no need to report that you're back, okay? Just tune in and watch. Otherwise, your message will distract the rest, okay? Right, so let's go on to the next strategy. First strategy is foreshadowing. Next strategy is starting in the middle. And can you see I've moved the word middle to the front because we're starting in the middle? Get it? Right? So we're starting, the middle begins the story. All right, so we've done this a number of times. We start the story in the middle of the action or climax, right? Instead of starting it right at the beginning, we start it in the thick of the action. And what this does, right, thick of the story, meaning right in the middle of the important, when you're using starting in the middle, that you don't give the end of the story away. Don't write how the story ends. Many of you, when you use starting in the middle in the first paragraph, right, you end up writing how the story ends. Now, if you tell the reader how the story ends, will there be any more suspense? No, right? Okay, there is no more suspense. Okay, no, not quite like a flashback. Okay, later on you'll see flashback, all right, and you'll see what's the difference. It's not a flashback. Okay, Ingrid, I will try to speak louder. Okay, so it's not a flashback. Starting in the middle is not a flashback. Okay, Yes, that's a good suggestion, Kaylin. Raise the volume. That would be very good, Ingrid. All right, on your side, please raise the volume. Okay, maximize it. That would be good. Or plug in some earphones. That would be helpful. Okay, right. So starting in the middle, very important to remember. You must not give the end away. The end only happens at the conclusion. Right at the bottom of the story. You want your reader to keep reading to the bottom to find out how the story ends. You don't write it at the beginning. Then you're giving it away. Then the rest of your story is just kind of like unimportant to the reader because he already knows how it ends, right? It would be like ruining the story. So remember to keep the story right at the most suspenseful moment and then go back to the beginning again. I'll show it to you, okay? How it happens. So let's take a look at this example, all right? Right in the middle of the story, right in the thick of the action, like I mentioned, give me your wallet! Potty growled menacingly, right? Cowering in fear at the sight of the biggest bully in the school, my eyes darted wildly around, looking for anyone or searching for anyone who could help me. Not a soul in sight, I thought to myself. I'm doomed. Right, so can y'all see that I've used some techniques from the last video on previous Saturday. This is starting with a dialogue, right? I've got my verbs and my adverbs. I've got my participles, ing, right? I've got another pair of verbs and adverbs here. And then I've got thought tags even, right? Not a soul in sight, I thought to myself. I'm doomed, right? That's a thought tag, right? So right here is my story, right in the middle of the story, right? As a reader, I'll be wondering, who is Potty? What an odd name, right? Why is there a character whose name is Potty, right? All right, yeah, that's right, okay. We'll find out about flashback later, Kaylin, right? There's a third strategy after this. You'll see flashback. So for now, focus on middle, starting in the middle. Let's not worry about flashback yet, okay? So I'm sure you can see, starting in the middle is simply plunging into the story, right? And then letting your reader kind of look at this very exciting part of the story and wonder what's going on, right? But let me caution you here. Unless you're extremely confident, I wouldn't recommend you using starting in the middle because it can get a bit confusing if you don't write it properly. And if the teacher is unsure, your teacher may penalize you because he or she cannot follow your story. So be very confident and careful if you want to use starting in the middle. Otherwise, starting with a dialogue, starting with a sound, all these other ways are a lot safer, okay? Even if you can do it a flashback, all right? So this is an example of starting in the middle, okay? I'm sure you can see I'm using all these strategies all together, right? To let you understand how they work together, okay? So this is the second strategy in creating suspense. The first, if you remember, right, was foreshadowing. Right now, it's starting in the middle. It's the same story, but I'm writing it slightly differently. I'm writing right now in the middle of the story so that I can introduce the characters and the actions and get the reader really interested in finding out how this story ends. Oh no, will you really get doomed? Will you really get beaten up by Potty? Will you really lose your money, you know, or your wallet? What's going to happen next, right? And then from this paragraph, I'm going to go on to begin the story later on, all right? So this is starting in the middle. It's the second strategy, right? Anybody has any questions about foreshadowing or starting in the middle at this point in time? Okay, good. It looks like everybody seems to be following along. If you have any questions, and you understand what I'm teaching, then let's move on to the last strategy under creating suspense, okay? Okay, Aiden is asking, do we then go on to copy what we write at the beginning later on in our climax? No, right? You'll see later on when I'm writing my climax that I actually rephrase it. I write it differently. I add to it, okay? Because if I repeat the same paragraph, then yeah, it's going to be really, really odd, right? It's kind of like reading the same content twice and the teacher will penalize you for it. So never repeat what you have in your introduction paragraph for starting in the middle. Don't repeat it later. when you're writing your climax. Okay, that's a good question. Be very careful that you don't do that. Okay. Exactly, Kaylin. You add more details. You add more information. You change it a little, which you will see in my example later. Okay. Now let's move on to the third strategy. Strategy number 3, the last strategy in the section on creating suspense, and it's the notorious flashback, right? Martin was asking about it earlier. I'm now going to show you the difference between a flashback and starting in the middle. It's a common mistake that many students make because we taught these two very close together. So some of you got confused, okay? So let me just show you the easiest way to do a flashback, all right? The simplest way to do a flashback. There will be a formula for this, okay? So it's like math. If you use this formula, you won't go wrong. But if you use the formula wrongly, then you might create confusion and your story will suffer for it, okay? So let's have a look, right? Genesis, we will end this live stream at 7 o'clock, okay? Now, next, flashback, okay? So now, remember, whenever you write a flashback in the first paragraph, you must always have a trigger. Now, a trigger is an object or an event that makes you think of this memory that is your story, right? Your story is a memory in your mind. Something in the real world, in the present, triggers your memory and you relive the experience in your head. And that's what this story is going to be about, okay? So there must be a trigger, something that starts you thinking about this story, and then this trigger will pull you back in time to that moment a long time ago when this story actually happened, okay? So trigger starts you on a journey back in time, and usually this memory has very strong emotions attached to it. But always remember, this is a very important point, when you travel back in time, you must always come back to the present at the end of your story. And later, in the conclusion for the flashback, I'll show you how to bring your reader back to the present time. Okay, so let's take a look at this example. Last Saturday, right, I'm setting the time. This is the story, in the present of the story, right? Last Saturday, as I was tidying my room, I opened a box under my bed and found my old wallet. Okay, so this is the trigger. The wallet is the trigger, right? My old wallet. Remember I said at the beginning of this video, the wallet would be one of the main, triggers, one of the main objects in my story. So I opened a box under my bed and found my old wallet. As I gazed fondly at the cracked leather cover, right? It's an old wallet, right? So it's cracked leather cover. My mind traveled back to the unforgettable incident that happened to me years ago when I was a primary school student. So remember I said formula? The formula is this. There must be a trigger, right? My old wallet. The sound of smashing glass, right? The screeching of tires. All of these are triggers, right? So what kind of an incident would the screeching of tires, the sound of screeching tires, trigger in your mind? Let's hear some responses, okay? Right, so can anyone suggest to me, if I hear the screeching of tires, let's say the trigger is the screeching of tires, what kind of memory would that bring to my mind? Yes, Genesis, exactly. So every time I hear tires screeching on the road, I will remember an accident I was in, all right? And the same emotions, the fear will come to my mind because that sound triggered my memory. Yes, perfect. Thank you, Martin and Aiden. That's exactly right. It's an accident. So in this case, all right, coming back to this topic. Yes, thank you, Caleb. In this case, coming back to this topic, my old wallet is the trigger that is going to my old wallet, right? And then I use the same words. My mind traveled back to the unforgettable incident that happened to me years ago. Got it? So if you are talking about a car accident, you might then add on, my mind traveled back to the unforgettable incident that happened to me years ago when I was involved in a horrific car accident, or when I was involved in a drowning incident, or when I was bullied in primary school. Or in this case, since I don't want to give away the bullying, I will just say when I was a primary school student. But I could simply say when I was bullied in primary school. Okay? So If it happens to someone else, then it's hard for you to do a flashback, Kaylin, right? Because remember, you are the person that this incident happened to. Therefore, your mind is able to flash back to that memory. If you were simply a witness, I suppose it could be that you be the character that is in that particular main role of the victim, all right, of a bullying incident. Right? I hope that answers your question, Kaylin. It is better if you are the victim when you're doing a flashback. Okay, so let me recap that. If you want to do a flashback, you need a trigger. So my old wallet, the sound of screeching tires, right? A report in the newspaper about a drowning incident. All these things are triggers. And then my mind traveled back to the unforgettable incident that happened to me years ago when I was involved in a car accident, or when I was involved in a drowning incident, or when I was bullied as a primary school student. Okay? It's as simple as that. Just follow this formula. Trigger, and then this trigger caused your mind to travel back. Right? If you are writing as another character, then you would say that Jane found her old wallet in a box. And then as Jane gazed fondly at the cracked leather cover, Jane's mind, or her mind, traveled back to the unforgettable incident that happened to her years ago. Right? So it's simply changing the character to the character you're writing about. If you are the narrator, then you're writing about Jane. Jane becomes the character that flashes back. All right? So it's possible to do that. But Jane is your main character, right? You're still writing about Jane. Right? Jane is not the witness. Jane is the victim of the bully. Okay? Right, so that's flashback. So Martin, I hope you understand the difference between a flashback and starting in the middle now. Starting in the middle is simply getting right into the middle of the action of the story, whereas flashback is very, very fixed. You've got to have a trigger, and this trigger makes your mind travel back to the incident that happened years ago. All right? And remember, whenever you flash back, you must always bring your reader to the present before you end the story. Otherwise, your reader's trapped in the past, right? Won't be able to carry on with his or her life. So remember to bring your reader back to the present. And I'll show you how to do that at the end of the story later. So far, thumbs up everybody, no problems. We've done the first 3 strategies, right? We've looked at flashback, we've looked at starting in the middle, and we've looked at foreshadowing for creating suspense. Now I'll go a bit faster into the next 3 strategies, which has to do with building the climax or the body of your story. Okay, so let's go. Next, right, so involving your readers in your story, the body of your story. So you can see here the body has to be a strong body, has to be a big body so it can support the head and the legs, right? So it has to have a wow factor. When your readers are reading your story, the body of your story, the climax, most exciting part of your story, they must be like so engrossed in it, like an action sequence, they don't want to stop watching or reading your story, okay? So there's 3 strategies that enable you to do this, right? The first strategy is using the 5 senses, all right? And this is related to show not tell, right? Remember we're talking about show not tell, right? Instead of saying that it's exciting, show that it's exciting. Instead of saying that a place is crowded, show that it is crowded. Instead of saying that you're feeling hot, show that you're feeling hot, okay? And you use your 5 senses for it. And remember, what are your 5 senses? Everyone, 5 senses? Anyone? Ingrid, your weather, you can use the weather, and here, this is where I'm using the weather, right? Okay? Right, right in the middle, I'm introducing the fact that it's very hot, okay? Your weather doesn't have to always appear in the introduction, right? Like I just showed you, all those 3 introductions were really effective, but they didn't have the weather in them. But right here, when I get into the story, the body of it is where I introduce, yes, very good, touch, right? I introduce the 5 senses and I include the weather, okay? I've got touch, okay? What else? Okay, throngs are big crowds of students, okay? So I've got touch, I've got smell, I've got taste, I've got sight, and I've got hearing, okay? So your eyes, your ears, your skin, your nose, your mouth, all right? These are your 5 senses. And I'm using all 5 senses in order to write this beginning of the climax, okay? The body of the story. So the school day began like any other. So After my introduction, I'm going into the beginning of the story. So the school day began like any other, all right? So throngs of students flooded the canteen. Remember in the earlier part of my story, in my introduction, I left the house, right? Okay, for the starting with the dialogue, let me just show you, right? Remember this one? Yeah, so remember foreshadowing, don't forget your wallet, right? So I took my wallet, I left the house, and little did I know that I would regret bringing my wallet to school that day. So this links over to my second paragraph, right? The school day began like any other. Notice that this can link to any of the other two introductions I wrote as well. So last Saturday, right? So in flashback, my mind traveled back to the unforgettable incident that happened to me years ago when I was a primary school student. Links here as well. So it kind of links as well. So there are different ways to start the story, but it links to this paragraph, okay? So the school day began like any other. Throngs of students flooded the canteen. So throngs are crowds of students, lots and lots of them, right? Flooded the canteen. So there's so many of them, it looks just like water, okay? Queuing up for steaming hot bowls of noodles. So notice I'm describing the steam, right, coming out of the bowls of noodles, and icy cold refreshment. So the beats of condensation, the icy cold refreshments, okay? The delectable aroma of laksa and fried chicken wings filled the air. Wiping sweat streaming down my face, right? And this is show not tell, right? It's really a hot day. So the sweat streaming down my face, I decided to escape from the murderous heat and the noisy crowd of screaming children. Where? Where do I escape them? In the school library. Okay? So as you can see, throngs of students flooded the canteen. I'm seeing it with my eyes. Delectable aroma of laksa and fried chicken wings. I'm smelling it with my nose. Right? Wiping the sweat streaming down my face, escaping the murderous heat. I'm feeling it on my skin. And the noisy crowd of screaming children in the school library, I'm hearing it with my ears. Okay? Have you all got that? Okay? Right. So throngs means crowds of people, screaming children, right? So they're running around, right? They're really excited, they're screaming. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that, okay, Martin? Okay, so that's using the five senses to describe the surroundings of the canteen during recess. And I'm also putting my character in the setting. All right, I'm introducing what's going on. So my character is about to go to the library. All right. No, it's not in the library, Martin. It starts in the canteen, and then your character, in this case me, I want to avoid the noise and the crowds and the throngs in the canteen, so I make my way to the library to escape them. Okay, so it begins in the canteen, but I move over to the library in the next paragraph. All right? Do you understand? I hope you do. Okay, so let's move on. So that's the five senses. You can see that I use my sight, I use my smell, I use my skin, my feel, and I also use my ears. Okay, now let's go to the next strategy, which is thought tags. Okay, so thought tags are interesting. They function as a language feature, but they also function as a content feature. They can help you to pull your reader in to the mind of your character. So in this case, you can literally help your reader read your mind. Okay, they can look into your mind and see what you're thinking, which is something that only writing can do. Draw the reader, involve the reader, get the reader into the story. So the second strategy, right, the first one was the five senses, draw the reader into the story by creating an immersive environment. Second strategy, thought tags, draw the reader into the story by showing the reader what's in your head, what you are thinking. Okay, so I thought to myself gleefully as I stepped into the air-conditioned comfort of the library. Again, I can feel the air-conditioned comfort, right? Cool at last. This is in my head, right? Cool at last. Making a beeline for the comic section at the back of the library, I was soon lost in the pages of my favorite comic, Poop Dog. Right? I wonder if there's actually a comic called Poop Dog. This is hilarious, right? In my mind, I'm thinking, this is hilarious. It's so funny, right? I chuckled to myself as I flipped the pages avidly, right? So I'm lost in this comic. I'm just so tickled by it. It's so funny, right? I'm enjoying myself. Okay? So finding it really funny, think it's really cool. I'm reading it, I'm enjoying myself in a cool atmosphere of the library. Okay, so there are at least 4 different thought tags here. I'm sure you can see. I thought to myself, cool at last. Okay, this is hilarious. Okay, all these thought tags actually introduce the reader to your character's thinking and makes the reader kind of feel very close to your character, because your reader is now in the mind of your character, right? And that makes your character very close. Okay, avidly means like really enthusiastically. Yeah, very enthusiastically, like you're really into it, you know, you're kind of like turning the pages very excitedly. Okay, so that's what avidly means. Yes, Aiden, it means to open your head up to the reader, not the marker, the reader, the person who's reading your story. Okay, yeah, that's right, it means very exciting, avidly. Okay, right, so this is the second strategy, thought tags. The third strategy, and the last strategy in this section on involving the readers is creating vivid action. Now, this is the climax of your story, right? This is the bullying incident, the actual bullying. So this, as you can see, is quite a lot longer than my previous paragraphs, because remember, it's twice as long because it's twice as important as the other paragraphs. The meat, the body of my story is right here. So how do I create vivid action? Well, obviously it has to be verbs, right? And not just normal verbs like run, walk, sing, look, say, but advanced verbs, okay? Verbs that have more than the basic meaning. So instead of said, I would say muttered. And you know, muttered has this kind of meaning of under your breath, not very loud, muttered. Instead of shouted, I'll go hollered, which has this idea about, you know, either anger or excitement and very high volume. So use advanced verbs to spice up your action so that it's so much more detailed. And then to even add more detail to that, I'll pair these verbs, these advanced verbs, with adverbs. And adverbs add to the verb. So your verbs are already powerful. I add more to it that makes it twice, 3 times, 4 times as powerful. And adverbs add information and color to your verb. All right? So finally, use participles. Participles are lovely. You see, I use a lot of them because they put the action right at the beginning of your sentence and put the spotlight on the action, not on the character, but on the action. And that's really good when you're trying to build action sequences, right? When you're trying to put your actions, string them together to make an exciting paragraph. Very effective. So again, advanced verbs paired with good adverbs and using lots of participles to begin the sentences would be a very good way to create vivid action sequences. Okay? Right? All right. Hello, Nicole. All right. Yes, higher levels of words, higher levels of verbs, in fact, verbs, okay? The word petrified simply means like frozen. So I used a higher level than frozen. I used the word petrified. Petrified means to be like turned to stone, totally immobile, can't move, okay? So yes, it's weird because you seldom use this word, right? But it simply means to be like totally frozen and unable to move, okay? Petrified. Okay. Right, let's get down to this climax that I'm writing using advanced verbs paired with adverbs and then with lots of participles thrown in. Without warning. Now this is a very good phrase to replace suddenly, right? We always like to use suddenly, suddenly, suddenly this happened, suddenly that happened. A good phrase to replace that if you're using too many suddenlies is the words without warning, right? Without warning, a shadow fell on the pages of my comic. Remember my character was reading the comic avidly, right? Without warning, a shadow fell on the pages of my comic. Looking up, I was petrified with fear and I stood rooted to the spot. Why? It was Potty, who was the biggest bully in the school, standing in front of me with an evil grin on his lips. Okay, did you just notice that I used a positive? Can you see these 2 commas here? 1 comma here, another comma here. And this, who was the biggest bully in school, right? This adds information to Potty, right? Potty, who was the biggest bully in school, standing in front of me with an evil grin on his lips, all right? Looking very fierce indeed. Give me your wallet! He snarled fiercely as he shoved me mercilessly against the shelves. Can you see the verbs and the adverbs that I'm using? Snarled fiercely, right? Shoved me mercilessly without any mercy. Shoved me, pushed me, right? Instead of push, shoved, which is even more forceful. Shoved me mercilessly against the shelves. Whimpering with fear, participle, ing, whimpering with fear. I reached helplessly for my wallet. So I was about to surrender my wallet. Potty smirked triumphantly, right? And reached for my wallet with his huge paw, right? So like with his huge hand, reaching for my wallet, right? And then I used a thought tag. Am I going to lose the precious wallet grandmother gave to me before she passed away, right? So now you know why this wallet is special to me. Am I going to lose the precious wallet grandmother gave to me before she passed away? So this thought goes through my mind. A million thoughts work through my mind. A million thoughts work through my mind. Oh dear, what's going to happen? Suddenly, or without warning, suddenly an idea struck me like a bolt of lightning. So remember similes? Like a bolt of lightning. Quickly, an idea entered my head. Taking a deep breath, another participle, I let out a piercing scream. Ah! Okay, are you following? Yeah, that's right. So this is about finding more advanced words to add to your story. So you don't have to use the same level of advanced words as Mr. Pang, but you can try your best to replace basic verbs like said and did and walked and ran with more complex verbs like I'm demonstrating to you. And then pairing adverbs with ly right next to them so that they have even more color and detail. Okay? So what do you think? It's pretty effective, right? If you look at this, I'm sure you'll agree with me, this is a very exciting portion of story, right? Okay, now we are ready to end this story and end this video very shortly, okay? Is everybody doing okay so far, right? We have 10 minutes more, right? And we're going to be finishing up before 7, like I said. I should be able to finish this story in the next 5 minutes and have about 5 minutes of question and answer, okay? Right, so take a look. I'm rather proud of this introduction actually, okay? It's got quite a lot of advanced verbs. It's got quite a lot of adverbs paired with those verbs, and it's got quite a lot of participles that put the spotlight on the action that's happening, okay? So what do you think happens when I let out a piercing scream in the middle of a silent library? Anyone? I'll wait for you. What do you think is going to happen? Right? There's obviously a reason why an idea struck me, so I screamed because I had something in mind. It was something that I was planning now. It was in my head. I didn't want to give the bully the wallet anymore because it's precious to me. It's my grandmother's gift before she passed away. So I decided to do something and I screamed. Okay? Nicole, do you think you're going to get scolded in this story? Does that make any sense? Right? Why is my character screaming? Yet, when a scream sounds out, who in the library can help me and has to come? Who? Right? Alright, we'll find out because I'm running a little short of time. Let's move on. Okay? So, let's go to the last 3 strategies, okay, which is the conclusion or the closure of the story, okay? So I've got to tie up all the loose ends in my story. So at this point in time, what are my loose ends? The bully is about to take my wallet. I don't know what's going to happen, right? I am about to get bullied. I don't know what's going to happen, okay? I'm all alone. There doesn't seem to be anybody near me, and there doesn't seem to be any solution to this problem. So I need to solve all these problems, and I need to give my story a good conclusion. So let's take a look, okay? So solution to the problem. What's the problem? I'm being bullied, right? I'm about to lose my wallet. Consequences for the actions of my characters. My bully, or in this story, this bully, is about to get my wallet. That's not fair, right? He's got to get punished. So I need to put some kind of consequence for his actions. And finally, there must be a lesson or a moral I learn from this experience. So let's take a look at how I finish this up. Okay, so the first paragraph, Potty was stunned by my outburst. So imagine if someone screams in your face, right? Suddenly the person you're bullying screams in your face. So Potty was totally stunned, right? So he was like shocked, right? Didn't know what to do, stunned by my outburst. Just then, the librarian came rushing up to investigate the noise. So the librarian, an adult, right, came rushing up to investigate the noise, and she witnessed the scene. So she saw Potty pushing me against the shelf, right? And immediately she boomed in fury, right? Stop your bullying! She boomed in fury. So she saw immediately what was happening and taking the screaming Potty by his ear. So she twisted his ear, by his ear. She marched him to the principal's office. Okay, so problem solved. Bully taken care of. My wallet still in my hand. Safe. Okay? Picking up my comic, I tucked my wallet safely away in my pocket. Alright, so wallet is now safe in my pocket. Alright? That day, I learned the lesson that I must be brave to stand up to bullies. So, did I stand up to the bully? Oh yes, I did. I screamed to attract the attention of an adult. Alright, I didn't fight the bully because I wouldn't have been able to win, but I did what I could to stand up to him. I didn't surrender my wallet. I screamed and attracted the librarian's attention. And the librarian took the bully to the principal where he would get the consequences or the punishment he deserved. Okay? Remember I said that if you're writing a flashback, the story needs to come back to the present. Now look at the last paragraph. So in addition to that, now in a normal story, I would end there with the lesson. But if I'm writing a flashback, I need to add another sentence. So look at my flashback. Alright, so mother, okay? Constable Ellen, come have your lunch. You need to report to the station. Mother's voice brought me back to the present. So remember, I was holding on to my wallet earlier, and then my mind was thinking about all these memories of being bullied when I was in primary school. So now, mother's voice brings me back to the present. Yes, madam! Smiling to myself, I tucked my precious wallet away again. Now, the reason why I wrote this, okay, is because I want to show the reader that I am now a police officer, right? Because of my experiences being bullied and my bravery in standing up to the bully, I grew up to become a constable or a police officer. And my mother is making me lunch before I report back to the station. Can you see how this story ties up nicely, right? Yes, it should be exaggerated because exaggeration is a part of writing a story. Remember, go big or go home, right? If I'm writing too small of a problem, I wouldn't really want to write a story, okay? Okay, let me read some of the comments. Okay, very good, librarian. Okay. Oh, you're talking about the scene where the librarian kind of like pulls Potty's ear, is it? Yeah, okay, I guess you could say it's kind of violent. We don't do this anymore. But remember, this story took place in the past. So it happened many years ago when, you know, librarians could still pull the ears of students. But if you don't want to write this, you can just say that she dragged Potty away to the principal. All right, she pulled him by the arm away to the principal. So that could actually be an alternative. Okay, but there's nothing wrong with exaggerating. There's nothing wrong with writing that, you know, he or she was pulled off. Okay, that's definitely very possible. Okay, let's see. Oh, hello. Who is this? Okay, who's this? Jaden, okay, yeah. Okay, Jaden asked, what's the meaning of triumphantly? Triumphantly means like, yay, I win, okay? Triumphant means winning, okay? Alright, okay. At this point, that's the end of the story, okay? Thank you for following through all 9 strategies. Let me just review the strategies again for everybody, in case you were not watching. Oops. Is there some? Let me see. Okay, right. Let's go back to the beginning. These are the 9 strategies, okay, that we talked about today. Suspense, which has to do with the introduction, using foreshadowing, starting in the middle and flashback. Involvement, which has to do with getting your reader into the story, into the body of the story, right? Using your 5 senses to set the scene, using dialogue and thought tags, using and building vivid action sequences using verbs and adverbs. And finally, closure, building a nice end to your story, making sure that there are solutions to the problems, consequences for any bad deeds that are done, and lessons that you learn at the end of the story, okay? So remember, boys and girls, that as you're writing the story, keep these points in mind, and you will be very, very safe in your writing, okay? All right, any questions at this point in time? We have about a couple of minutes left before 7 o'clock, okay? Okay, right, okay. Okay, awesome. Any questions, anyone? Any questions about any part of what you watched? Anything that you might need? Okay, so very quickly by way of ending, I'll post this video onto Edmodo. So in case I was speaking too quickly, you need to revisit some of what I said. After I've edited it, this will be posted on Edmodo for you to re-watch, review again and again. And remember, these techniques, both for this video and the previous one, are applicable in primary 5, primary 6, all right? It doesn't matter how far up you go, these same principles of good writing will continue, okay? So if you have any questions or doubts, please let me know. Oh, some of you are asking, yes, for the flashback, okay, I think this has to do with the flashback, right? Right at the end of the story, Constable Allen is you, right? Me. I am Constable Allen. I've grown up, right? I've grown up and I've become a police officer because I had the courage to stand up to the bully, right? It inspired me to become a police officer so I could protect other people who were being bullied by criminals. So that's the reason why I wrote this flashback, so that I can show to the teacher that is marking my composition that I've taught about what has happened in this story, and the lesson I've learned has led me to become an adult police officer who protects others who are being bullied. Okay, so that's just me trying to be a little bit more clever. So if you don't understand it, it's okay, don't worry about it. Just don't do the flashback, okay? Like I said, it's an advanced technique. Even my primary 5 and 6 pupils have trouble doing a flashback. If you're not confident, just start with dialogue or start with the sound, and then your story can develop as normal, okay? Yeah, police station, that's right, okay? So I'm going to put this together as a model composition. I'll put it in a Word document so you can see the story develop as a coherent model composition. I will also write 2 other models for the samples in Edmodo. I posted 2 more samples for you to try because I realized that a lot of our compositions are negative, right? Crime, bullying, drowning, car accident, right? Someone falling down. I thought it'd be nice to practice something positive. So I put 2 positive composition topics. I'll put the models up at maybe tomorrow. And I may do 1 more video tomorrow, okay, talking about the common mistakes that all of you make when you're writing your compositions. I'll put some examples and we'll discuss. It'll be quite fun because it'll be funny. I'll introduce some of the common mistakes you guys make, okay? So that's going to be tomorrow, hopefully. And this will be the 3 video series for your revision SA2 composition. The first video was on the 9 techniques for language. Today's video is on the 9 techniques for good content. And then tomorrow's video will be on common mistakes that you make when you're writing a composition. Your class, all of you, in 4A, specific to you, okay? We'll see, okay, Zhi-Ting? We'll see what time it will be. I'll try to fix it up, okay? We'll see. So if nobody has any questions, thank you all so much for joining me today for the video. You were a lovely, lovely audience. Your questions were very meaningful and you participated very well. Thank you for helping each other, especially those who joined in later. I know that some of you came from tuition sessions, or you came from your relatives' houses or somewhere else and you rushed to join in the video. Thank you for making the effort to come in. Don't worry, you haven't missed anything. All of this has been recorded and I'll post the complete video along with some edits up on Edmodo sometime later on tonight. So check back tomorrow morning. You should be able to see the complete video. And I will also perhaps write some answers to some of your more common questions. I'm going to look through the chat group to look at all the common questions you're asking, and if I missed any out, I'll answer it in Edmodo. Okay? Tomorrow, I will try to live stream by 7. Okay? I'll try my very best to live stream by 7. Sundays are a bit unpredictable for me because I have church, and then after church, we generally hang out, and we don't know what time that will end. So I'll let everybody know if there's any change. But if not, I will see you all tomorrow at 7. And thank you all. There's so many of you who joined in. It's so great to see all of you. Thank you for making the effort to take this time to watch the video. I really appreciate it. You guys are awesome, right? And you inspire me to make more of such videos. I will try to make my videos better. Okay, thank you all. Lovely. Okay, goodbye, Kaylin. Goodbye, everybody. Let me know. You're very welcome. It was a pleasure. All right. Okay. Any more questions? If not, I'm going to end the video soon. And once again, yes, where is Mr. Hippo? Mr. Hippo is right here. This is Mr. Hippo. Say hello. All right, Mr. Hippo has made his appearance. Mr. Hippo has the Hippo Ball of Fame that he stands on. Hello, everybody. I'm on the top of the world. Top of the world. Who is he? Well, Mr. Hippo has an interesting history, in case you don't know. Mr. Hippo was knitted by hand, right? He's made by hand, knitted. Every one of this you see, stitches on his body, he's knit by hand by Mr. Pang's friend. And she knits toys for underprivileged children in countries like Cambodia and Laos and Myanmar. She sells these toys and she raises money to buy textbooks, clothes, and to support the school buying of supplies over in Cambodia, Myanmar, and Laos. Okay, so that's Mr. Hippo. He has a very charitable cause behind him. Okay, so everybody say goodbye to Mr. Hippo. Mr. Hippo, goodbye to everybody. Okay, you guys are all lovely. See you all soon.